Have you ever asked yourself how come your rental payments don't actually go towards your credit? I mean, like when you're buying a house, why can't the mortgage company look at your on-time rental payments and use that towards maybe giving you a loan? Makes sense, right? Well, guess what? As of August 2021, Fannie Mae has announced that they will consider 12 months of on-time rental payments towards you getting approved for a home. And this week, that's what we're gonna talk about. But before we dive into that, a little bit of house cleaning. I'm Chris Nelson with Gemstone Realty, and this channel is all about real estate advice, tips, and tech. So if you are interested in any of those, you are in the right place, but do me a favor, drop me a comment, hit that thumbs up, consider subscribing, and mash that bell so that you're notified of my future content. So one of the biggest questions I get asked by first-time home buyers is, why aren't my rental payments, which are on time, factored in or even considered towards me getting a loan? Well, there's a lot of reason for that. And years ago, there was something known as a verification of rent, or a VOR, which literally was not regulated and was disastrous. Buyers were basically having their friends say that they were their landlord, signing off on a piece of paper stating that they paid rent on time all the time. And well, as we know, that is fraud and was part of the reason why we had a housing crisis years ago. But fast forward to 2021, and Fannie Mae has now revisited this situation and put a little bit more thought into it. And they have decided that as of September 18th of 2021, they are now going to start considering on-time rental payment history towards mortgage eligibility. So let's unpack that a little bit. So let's start with what exactly you need to show to demonstrate that you have been paying rent on time for at least the last 12 months. Well, the first thing is the fact that you need to be paying rent for at least 12 months, and those rent payments need to be on time. Now, what do they mean by on time? Your rental lease may have a grace period of 5 days or anything to that extent. Some of them may be longer, but most of them give you a 5-day grace period. Well, it could be argued that if you're not paying your rent on the first, that could be late. But when you have a mortgage, you actually have a 15-day grace period. So this is something that I haven't seen clearly defined as to what classifies as on-time payments, but I'm gonna go out and assume that so long as you are making your rent payment before it becomes late, before the 5th of the month, that would actually classify or qualify as an on-time payment. Now, again, it needs to be consistent for consecutive 12 months. So if you have been renting a home for 2 years and somewhere over the last 12 months, you had a little hiccup and you missed a payment, well, unfortunately, that doesn't classify as 12 consecutive months. It must be consecutive, and your rent needs to be at least $300 or more. So if you are paying rent $300 or more for the last 12 months consecutively, you are starting to meet the criteria for this new requirement. But if you have been paying your rent in cash, this is where you may not want to watch any more of this video. Fannie Mae has announced that in order for you to meet this criteria, they must be able to determine and review your bank statements. Now, you may not want to give them your actual bank statements, which is okay. So bank statements is one way to show them that you did issue checks to your landlord on time and those checks did clear. The other thing you could do is literally just give them copies of the cleared checks. Not everyone is comfortable giving their full bank account, which that isn't something that I would want to do. So you can opt to use cleared checks. The other thing is, if you are paying in the form of money order, you can also give them copies of the money orders, because those can be confirmed that they were issued and cleared, or issued on a certain date, and you can always go ahead and provide them with the stubs to those money orders. And if you have been paying via Venmo or Cash App or some of these other electronic portals, that is also an option. But I believe the caveat is that it must be drawing from your checking or savings account. It cannot be drafting or debiting from a credit card. Don't hold me to that. I'm getting mixed reviews or feedback on that, but I will do my best to confirm. But as of now, from what I am getting out of this is that it must come from some form of a checking or a savings account. In addition, your landlord could also give them proof of direct payment. Now, I believe there are a few different options that they have, but a simple letter, even if it's signed and notarized, will not meet the criteria in this situation. So it will need to be a little bit more than that. But if your landlord is willing to give maybe copies of their deposits, showing that they did deposit checks from you, because their bank account will have copies of that as well, that would be sufficient. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that all proofs of payment must include the following. It must show who is being paid, and it must show the amount that is being paid. And obviously, once it clears, you're gonna need to be able to show the date in which that check was written and or given. So aside from that, right now, those are the only ways that I'm being told that you can go ahead and prove these on-time payments. Now, one thing I want to add to this, because this was somewhat of a gray area to me up front, was let's just say that there are two people on a lease. They are renting, but they both want to buy a home together, and they're going to go on the application together. Well, it doesn't matter if one person or the other person is paying rent, or they're mutually splitting it, whether it be 50-50 or whatever the agreement may be. Technically, the way this works is the non-traditional piece of credit, right? The way that they're verifying the on-time payments will apply to both of you. So if person A was the person making 100% of the rent payments, it was coming from their personal checking account and this, that, and the third, but person B was on the lease, well, in this situation, person B is going to benefit from those on-time payments so long as they are both going on the mortgage application together, which I thought was really cool to know. All right, so let me be clear. Fannie Mae has made it pretty clear that this is not put in place to replace credit. This is simply another way or another tool in the loan officer's belt, or the underwriter's belt, I should say, for them to give eligibility to consumers. This is still going to be a situation where your credit, your overall credit, your debt to income ratio, your employment, and a few other moving mechanics are still going to have a lot of weight in the lender's decision to approve or deny. But if you are on the fence or have maybe scattered or just don't have a whole lot of credit, well, this is where these measures or new implementations can come into play and really help you out. So at the end of the day, who does this help? Who does this solve a problem for? Well, obviously we're discussing the fact that this applies to renters, but not all renters need help. A lot of renters actually have decent credit, but a lot of other renters do not. So this is going to help the renters who have maybe little to no credit history, or maybe they are on the verge of qualifying and they just need a little extra push that the underwriter can say, you know what, we are going to give them a favorable decision and go ahead and approve them. But to give you some numbers, roughly 20% of the US population either has no credit history or very limited credit history. So 1 in 5 potential buyers has no or limited credit history. That's crazy. Those numbers are crazy. And that is a number that is disproportionately shared across the Black and Latinos communities, unfortunately. So this will also go to help the Black and Latino community become homeowners. To add, a recent Fannie Mae survey showed that among Black renters, one of their biggest concerns or caveats when it comes to their thought process to not being able to qualify for a loan actually is the lack of credit or lack of credit history. So this is going to be huge and major for some people out there. As a matter of fact, a sample of recent mortgage applications showed that of people who were recently denied the opportunity to take a mortgage out, these new factors would have resulted in roughly 17% of those people denied receiving a favorable recommendation, or in other words, an approval. And 17%, well, that's a pretty healthy number if you ask me. So at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that this is definitely a step in the right direction. This is definitely a step which will help a lot of other people obtain home ownership. But you know me, I always look at things a little bit differently, and there is a downside to this. And to me, in my opinion, that's timing. What we don't need, and this goes back to another video that I did about student debt and how Fannie Mae was factoring that when it comes to mortgage qualifications or mortgage applications, which also was another great step towards promoting homeownership, as is this. But the challenge is timing. What we don't need right now in the market in 2021 and more than likely in 2022 are more buyers. If we need anything, it's more housing inventory. We need more sellers. We need more builders putting up bricks and sticks. So although I'm very excited and support Fannie Mae and their decision, and I'm sure a lot of loan officers out there do as well, my concern ultimately is timing. So again, with all of that being said, this is great news. If you were recently denied a mortgage and you feel as though that now having your rental history be considered, maybe you want to get back on the phone with your loan officer and me, because you need a good realtor. So once again, Chris Nelson with Genstone Realty. Thank you for checking in this week. Do me a favor, drop me a comment as mentioned. Don't forget to subscribe and check in next week for the very next Just the Tip with Chris. Until then, take care.